Welcome to my channel, guys. Let's speak about something called Docker. I'm sure you all have heard about it. So let me answer this question. Should you use Docker? Now, before I answer the question, let me ask you, how do you normally develop the application on your site? Um, so what do? You download the application locally, you clone it, you set up the environment variables, you make sure your local computer can run this application. So let's say you ran something else last week and you had to change your PHP version, you had to change MySQL version, you had to change the version of the other services that your application is relying on. Now you have changed all that, okay? It takes time to change all these things. You're basically rebuilding your sort of ecosystem so your application can run. Now you rebuild all that, okay? It's perfect. Now you go on and your application sort of works. It doesn't work, you have to make some tweaks, you have to speak to people, you have to reread the documentation, you gotta make sure that everything that you're doing is correct, you gotta make sure that this command that you're running is still valid on all that stuff, okay? You got to make sure that certain libraries can be installed on your operating system, certain packages can be. You have to make sure that the correct version is there and all that, okay? Let's say you did all that and you got the application running. Perfect, okay? Now you start working on it. You're working on your application, yeah? You're working on your application. Now, let's say 2 years later or 6 months down the line, you have to work on something else, okay? You have to build a component or something, you have to write some script, anything at all. Now your computer is configured to run that application. What do you have to do now? You have to get rid of everything else that's there or switch all the versions to make sure the new thing that you're developing can run there, okay? Now you change the system again, okay, and make sure the things can run. Now you have to go back and work on the previous application for some reason because there is a bug or anything like that, now you have to change the system again, right? Now you can imagine how quickly it can get messy. You're gonna just break your computer, you're not gonna have correct version installed compared to what's on live site. If there is another developer, you have to replicate the whole process, you have to go to their desk again and then teach them how to install the everything because they're going to forget. Readmes are not going to be fully up to date. This is where Docker comes in. With Docker, what you can do, you can write a script, okay? You can write a script that installed all the dependencies for you. It's like a shell file, okay? You write a script there, install Apache, install PHP, install Redis, and all that, install MySQL, configure the database, and all that. You can do that with Docker script, okay? What Docker will do, Docker will take the image of an operating system, okay? For example, Ubuntu. If you had been developing your application on Ubuntu, it'll take image of Ubuntu, and it will create a container with that. Containers, you can see container as like its own mini operating system where you can run the application. Now you have the Docker file, the shell file, okay, that runs the script that sets up this mini container operating system for you with all the dependencies, okay? You have the container now, one container. You pull the code, you run the code, you make sure it's running, okay, right? Now you can save the image that you built, okay? That's this shell file and all that you built. You can save it, okay? You can save it. It's like a little file. Save it, upload it to to Docker Hub, and then someone else can just pull this image and create a container from that, and they will have everything they need. Their original operating system is not being affected. That's the important thing here. Now you could have another image, okay, that runs something else. This person can go on Docker Hub and pull this image, create a container from that image, okay? It's still separate from the operating system, so now they can have this mini version of operating system running, and then this one running. Two applications. Your computer is not affected. You can destroy them, you can rebuild them, okay? That's the biggest advantage of using Docker, okay? So that's where it really shines. You don't have to worry about I need to install it. What we have at 6desk here, we have a Docker image. All I have to do is pull the image, all I have to do is just pull the image locally, and then do something like Docker Composer up. It will set up the MySQL for me, it will set up the application for me, install all the dependencies without affecting my computer, all inside the container. Okay, now I can create other containers as well. That's the beauty of it. I can create another container. For example, I can create MySQL container. I can pull MySQL image from hub, create a container. Now, instead of having MySQL in my original container where the application is running inside there, I'm not going to have that. I'm going to let my application connect to this container. Okay, so you have your application, then you have another container here, then you can have another container, you can have different services running in different containers, while meanwhile your application is just interacting with these. The reason it's able to connect to these services is because they have port exposed. Okay, so this is another beauty, that you can destroy all the containers, you can restart, refresh, you can give the image to someone else, and they can just start developing instantly, literally instantly. Okay, now to learn Docker, you have to know how operating system works. You have to have some experience with Linux. You need to know how to write shell scripts and all that stuff. Okay, you have to have experience with web dev. You can't just start learning Docker when you're just starting web dev. Makes no sense. If you're just starting web dev, just install them on your own on your computer. You're not gonna destroy many things. But yeah, if your script is if your application is big enough where you're concerned that if you bring someone else on board and they gonna eat a lot of your time, like days and days to set up their computer, and then if something else happens, their computer breaks, the operating system crash, something is messed up, you'll have to go back to them and then help them reinstall everything. You end up wasting your time, wasting their time. If you're in that situation, you can use Docker. Okay, that's one thing. Obviously you can use also deploy Docker image. Okay, you can, for example, you can have production Docker image, you can deploy it to AWS, and you will have a site running instantly, basically. So those are the benefits. If I think you should learn Docker, like I said before, I think you should, especially because a lot of companies seem to be using it. So if you're applying for jobs and all that, it's something good to have. Now, you're not going to become Docker expert overnight. You'll have to spend some time there. I would say a couple good months. Just if you have an application, just try to convert that into application to Docker image, sort of like where you can use the Docker image, and see if you can just run the application. And that's how I do. So yeah, that's what I think. Make sure to subscribe if you have not. Best of luck.